All right, welcome back. That was a little bit of a strange match. I'm not even entirely sure who did take it in the end there.
Severance took it in the end by 3 points by killing that Paladin right 10-15 seconds left on the match. A really weird match, to say the least. I don't understand why Severance wasn't doing more damage to that Guardian before the end.
Yeah, it was actually 3 points, not 3 points, but it was very interesting.
Oh, snap, Michael Bolton.
It was very interesting. I really thought Vanguard had that, and then as soon as their Guardian went down, all their damage stopped. There was no more damage coming out. They had been putting that Tango down pretty well, and once that Guardian went down, all their damage just ceased to be effective.
I think we might have seen some dams coming in from the Vanguard team. They were forcing those Tangos to go into weapon nude range. That's how they lost one of their Tangos very early on, and the second one was taking damage. I think what happened is the Tango got out of weapon nude range and therefore was able to tank better. So maybe they made some mistakes at the very beginning.
I think those Paladins were also very good. They were cap transferring that Guardian. That Guardian had a very strong local tank, and it took them a long time to break that local tank.
That was a bit of a different setup. I think it's the first time we've seen Minmatar battleships, Amar battleships indeed in this tournament. Let's get back to that, but we did change guests, and I kind of want to introduce Hilmar. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
For the new players, for people that may not know who you are, you're the CEO of CCP?
Indeed.
And you've been with the company since basically forever.
Forever. It feels like forever at least.
But you've done more than be the CEO. You've worked other...
Yeah, I initially started as CTO back in 2000.
Oh, right.
And then sort of turned producer there in the middle of it, as we didn't really have one. And then in 2004, I was asked to be the CEO, and I said, okay, I'll do it.
And you just came back from E3 yesterday.
Yes.
Are you a little bit jet lagged?
Not really, actually.
Okay.
It's kind of weird.
Okay, and you were there, of course, doing the presentation with Sony revealing Dust. How was the reception at E3?
I would say the reception was phenomenal. And doing it there at the Sony keynote was quite a big stage, and probably the sort of biggest venue we presented any CCP product at. And it was kind of interesting because CCP products in general are often different than sort of what goes on at E3, which is very much dedicated to the sort of packaged good business and retail and so forth. So sort of doing it in contrast with that was sort of additional sort of interest in it because people felt it to be so unique.
Okay, cool. So we saw a lot of the forums, we saw a lot of publications online talk about this. How about the other game companies? Do they think we're crazy?
Everyone has always thought us to be crazy since first day, and now even crazier.
All right.
So the level of craziness people perceive us at has escalated even more now.
So no one else essentially is trying to connect PCs and PlayStation 3s and two different games?
No, and maybe when you think about it, unless you have a single sharded game where every player is playing together already, it maybe doesn't make any sense to connect to two disparate games. But on the other hand, when you have a single shared game, then you quickly see that it makes no sense to make the game separate from that game, other than that the genre is completely different and you need to do like we're doing with World of Darkness.
So, I mean, of course, EVE Online, probably not just the greatest game, but probably the greatest piece of entertainment ever made. But there's also other relatively good companies. What other stuff at E3 did you see that impressed you?
Well, I mean, there were certainly a lot of impressive trailers showed for some of the AAA games coming out. But the games themselves are maybe not very innovative. But on the other hand, what's happening in the casual space, what's happening in sort of casual, free-to-play, virtual goods, virtual currency, economy-driven games is amazing. To meet with the guys making League of Legends and World of Tanks, which are obviously more in the hardcore space, but also in the casual set. People really have really advanced the sort of state of game design, I would say. Yeah. Whereas on the AAA side, so much is poured into production quality, which is fantastic. I mean, seeing some of the trailers, they're amazing. But on the game design front, the steps are more incremental.
sat and watched it, and I think you're absolutely right. There's a lot of very, very pretty, very advanced AAA titles coming out, but not a lot of reinventing the wheel, at least. But hopefully, we'll see more of that. If we'll just jump back into this match we just saw. So we had the first MR battleships of the day. What was that setup all about? Did anyone really catch the gist of it?
I think what they were trying to do there is utilize those utility highs on the Paladin to maybe like bait tank that Guardian, but it sort of was a very strange setup for me to like really, without seeing the fits, like guess what their overarching strategy was there.
Yeah, it was a little bit interesting choice to go with the Paladins, perhaps, as Bolton here correctly so says. Maybe it's the utility highs that were driving it. We've seen some strong battleship-heavy teams, but the teams have typically been built around the Macarials and other faction battleships, which aren't as cap-intensive as lasers are.
Might this be a reaction? We've been talking about all the ECM setups. Might this be a reaction that we haven't really seen MR ships, and this might be one of the things that people didn't really fit the ECMs to tackle?
Well, the problem is they brought Marauders, which are notoriously weak against ECM. You really have to modify your fitting to fit that ECCM to try and make it so they're not just jammed out the entire match. So I'm not really sure if it was, once again, without seeing the fits, it's hard to say if it was a direct counter or a designed counter against ECM.
Yeah, it was a little bit interesting. I mean, they were doing damage still. We saw some ships explode there, so they weren't jammed all the time. I don't know. It's a little bit. I mean, if the Severance team would have brought any kind of team built around the curses, that match would have been over very quickly.
But I mean, the Vanguard Imperium setup was a little bit strange. But you said that you felt the Severance was a strange kite team as well.
Probably. I'm not too sure, my memory is gone already, but I didn't see a lot of Hugens or other stopping power from that team.
It looked like half a kite team.
It looked like a team that was comfortable being close, but didn't really want to get close or had any reason to get close. In fact, when they did, they died. So I'm not too sure what exactly they were thinking there. They also lacked DPS. I think that was quite obvious there. They only, they couldn't even break the Guardian.
I think those Ishkars were a strange choice as well for the team.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the assault frigates and why we haven't seen something like the Ishkars before, who have quite a large drone bay, of course. I think we didn't see it on the feed, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of those battleships had smart bombs fitted, and maybe those Ishkars became a non-issue from the very beginning. Yes, a little bit strange choice of a team, but they did win.
All right, they certainly did. Next up is Paiste Syndicate versus Perihelion Alliance. We've been told that Perihelion Alliance have brought their flagship. This is another one where the winner of this one is secured to be in next Sunday's finals. The loser, of course, will go to 1-1 and needs to win next Saturday. So let's see Perihelion Alliance versus Paiste Syndicate. Let's get the predictions around the board.
I'm going to actually change my original prediction and go with Perihelion now that I know they've brought their flagship.
Oh, I see.
I think Perihelion surprised us, but I'm still going to bet on the finish.
Hilmar?
Yeah, I'm gonna bet with the flagship.
All right, another vote for Perihelion. I think I'm going to go with Paiste this time around.